I call this meeting to order. Welcome to meeting number 7 of the House of Commons Standing Committee on Finance. I hope everybody had a happy Thanksgiving and a good week in your ridings, and we're glad to be back here in Ottawa. Avant de commencer, j'aimerais demander à tous les participants en personne de lire.
Before beginning, I'd like you to read the guidelines, the updates that are on the stickers that are on the table. This is to avoid any acoustic incidences for either witnesses or members or the interpreters. You will note that today's QR code on the card, which links you to a short awareness video. Today's meeting takes place in a hybrid format, and I'd like to offer the following points. Before speaking, please wait until you are recognized by the chair. For those participating in video mode, click the microphone icon to activate the mic and mute yourself when you're not speaking.
Select the appropriate channel for interpretation, either floor, English, or French. And for those in the room, you can use the earpiece and select the desired channel. For members participating in person or via Zoom, please raise your hand if you wish to speak. The committee clerks and I will do the best we can to maintain consolidated speaking order. A reminder that all comments should be addressed through the chair. So, pursuant to the order of reference of Thursday, June 12th, 2025, and the motion adopted on Monday, September 22nd, 2025, the committee shall resume consideration of Bill C4, an act respecting certain affordability measures for Canadians and another measure. I would like to welcome our witnesses, the Honourable Minister Gregor Robertson, the Minister of Housing and Infrastructure, thank you for joining us, as well as Deputy Minister Paul Halucha of the Department of Housing, Infrastructure and Communities. Minister, you will have 5 minutes for your opening remarks. Thank you.
Merci et hello everyone. Bonjour tout le monde. Good to be with you, and thank you for inviting me here today to appear before you and speak about the Making Life More Affordable for Canadians Act. Canada is facing a housing crisis, leaving many Canadians without affordable homes. The Government of Canada is taking action to create transformational change in our country's housing system and implementing a range of measures to help lower housing costs. And as part of the proposed Bill C4 currently being studied by the committee, the federal government has introduced a number of tax measures to help improve affordability and boost housing supply. If passed, the measures in C4 would help more Canadians get into the housing market. Un exemple est le remboursement de la TPS pour les acheteurs.
One example is the first-time homebuyers GST rebate, which was intended to help first-time homebuyers enter the housing market.
Homebuyers by eliminating the GST on new homes up to $1 million and reduce the GST for new homes between $1 million and $1.5 million. And by implementing this measure, Canadians would save up to $50,000 on a new home. Cette remise de la TPS aidera à encourager les acheteurs.
This GST rebate would help incentivize first-time buyers to consider buying a newly built home rather than a home in a resale market. In turn, increased demand for newly built homes would encourage developers to build more homes and grow Canada's housing supply.
Would apply to approximately 47,000 newly built homes annually and deliver as much as $3.9 billion in tax savings to Canadians over 5 years. This measure would be available to eligible first-time home buyers who are at least 18 years old and are either a Canadian citizen or permanent resident. Buyers will not be eligible for the rebate if they have lived in a home owned either by themselves or their spouse or common law partner as the individual's primary place of residence in the previous 4 years. The rebate will be available for many different types of housing, including detached homes, semi-detached homes, row houses, townhouses, duplexes, residential condominium units, certain shares of co-op housing corporations, and mobile homes and floating homes as well. So it really applies to a very diverse range of different new homes. Cette mesure législative est qu'une
This legislative measure is only part of the government's plan to lower housing costs for Canadians.
I launched Build Canada Homes, a new federal agency that will finance and build affordable housing. It will leverage public lands, offer flexible financial incentives, and attract private capital, facilitate large portfolio projects, and support manufacturers to build the homes that Canadians need. And with an initial capital investment of $13 billion, it will catalyze a more productive home building industry and support more affordable housing options for low and middle income households. We are also taking action to lower costs for Canadians who cannot or do not want to own their home. The government has already introduced a 100% GST rebate for new purpose-built rental housing, which is having a positive impact on the construction of new rental housing. L'augmentation du nombre de logements à louer permet.
Building more rental supply means more options for Canadians who rent their homes and will help lower rents, particularly in tight housing markets.
Will lower the cost for Canadians to help young people buy their first home, a dream that was attainable for their parents' and grandparents' generation, and which we are working hard to help them realize. Le gouvernement de Canada s'engage à développer un
The
service.
Government of Canada is committed to building a housing system that works for everyone in the country.
Homes and with these targeted tax measures like the first-time home buyers GST rebate to restore affordability and lower housing costs for Canadians. I look forward to answering your questions. Thank you, Madam Chair. Merci.
Great. Thank you, Minister Robertson. And I will now open the floor to questions, and we'll begin with Mr. Halan from the Conservatives for 6 minutes.
Thank you, Chair. Minister, how many housing starts will Canada see this year?
To the member, we're on track at this point, about 14% higher than last September, the CMHC number. So we're tracking north of 250,000 starts this year. If it's annualized,
What's the
closer
number?
to 280, but somewhere between 240 and 280 would be my.
Your housing department says that housing starts will be down this year.
The stats are from CMHC. The latest stats came in for September, which showed us tracking 14% above last September in terms of housing starts across the country.
Now, your government announced back in March that you would build 500,000 homes a year. And with that announcement, if you look at the numbers, that means that you would have to build 57 homes per hour, per day, every year. Are you on track to build 50? Are you currently building 57 homes an hour?
To the member, we are not. Canada is not building at that scale. That is a longer
your
term
government
goal.
promised
We're
back in
looking at
March.
over a decade doubling construction up to that level, but that certainly will take many years to achieve, given the changes that need to be made in the industry. At this point, we don't have the labor force to manufacture at that scale, and that's why Build Canada Homes is focused on the manufacturing side to make the
So
building
when
of
is the
housing
first
more
year?
efficient.
When is the first year Canada will build 500,000 homes?
Well, the language that we've used is over the next decade. So I think it's reasonable. It's still very aggressive and ambitious to get to 500,000 over the next decade, but that's what we need to scale up to.
I mean, giving yourself that much leeway without any specifics is a little bit misleading. Can you tell us what year would be the first year over the next decade that Canada will see 500,000 homes being built in the year?
The goal is to get to 500,000, to double construction over the next decade. So it's ramping up to that level. That will start to make up the ground of the gap that we have in housing supply, as identified by the stats and CMHC research.
Well, your own housing department, CMHC, says that housing starts will decline next year by 4.1%. How do you square that?
Well, that's a projection. We can only work with the facts we have in front of us, which for September were a 14% increase over last year, or that is what we're tracking. Pre-sales are down in some markets, Vancouver and Toronto, as the examples that we're concerned about. And that's why we're pulling out all stops with Build Canada Homes, with measures like this that will get more affordable housing built, that will get home ownership opportunities with new homes that the industry can build. We want to see
Minister,
this.
why are sales down?
Sales are, given the global economic conditions right now, I think there's a lot of uncertainty in the markets, particularly in the
Minister,
big cities.
Are you saying global factors have something to do with Canadian home prices? Like, are you saying that we import our own land and homes?
What I'm saying through the chair is that many buyers are concerned about the current economic circumstances, the tariffs from the U.S. that have been extremely
but home affordability
challenging
was
for
out
the
of
Canadian
control
economy.
before the tariffs hit. Your government was responsible for doubling housing costs in this country before the tariffs hit.
Well, I can speak from experience. In my city in Vancouver, we had a housing crisis 20 years
Which
ago.
has one of the worst records, by the way.
And 20 years ago, that affordable housing crisis was already impacting us, and we saw for 10 years the Harper government do nothing to make housing more affordable in my city, and that
Housing
problem
was
has
half the
proliferated.
cost when the Harper government was in.
And it doubled. In Vancouver, you look at the housing
After
market
you
between
became mayor,
2005 and 2015,
Well,
there was
housing costs have
dramatic
doubled
rise.
since 2015.
and
Minister, respectfully, your government spent $89 billion on housing, supposedly, to make housing costs come down. Rents and mortgages have doubled since your government spent more than $89 billion. Now your government is creating a fourth bureaucracy after the first three were responsible for doubling housing costs, that made sure that young people lost the dream of home ownership. 9 out of 10 have given up on home ownership. And unless someone has the bank of mom and dad in this country, they don't have enough money for a down payment on this house. If the first three bureaucracies failed and you spent more than $89 billion to accomplish all that, what's this fourth bureaucracy going to do?
through the chair, I am very confident that Build Canada Homes, with an initial $13 billion investment, will be able to make housing more affordable for Canadians. We are
Last
seeing,
10 years of your government have proven wrong.
through the chair, I was elected 6 months ago, and so the government that I'm part of now is rolling out this tax measure to save first-time
It's all
home
the same
buyers
ministers, it's all the same
$50,000.
policies, so we don't believe that there's anything new.
This is a new tax measure through the chair to save first-time home buyers $50,000 on a new home,
Okay,
and
I
that will
have
help
limited time.
with
I'll ask you
affordability.
one last thing. CMHC executives received bonuses every year, even though housing starts decreased, and housing has doubled in this country. Can you confirm if CMHC executives will receive bonuses this year for doubling housing costs?
Very brief response.
Through the chair, I can get back to the member with those details. I haven't seen the latest on CMHC bonuses for the year.
Please,
Great.
please,
Thank
we
you,
expect you to
Mr.
get
Hillen.
back.
That's time. Thank you, Minister. I'm going to go now to Mr. McDonald for the Liberals for 6 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Minister, for coming today. I wanted to talk about, you were fortunate enough to get to PEI this summer and meet with stakeholders in my community of Stratford, in my riding. We heard many different things there that day, but in particular, we heard that PEI in Atlantic Canada is doing well with affordable housing, but there's a need for more the deep affordable housing. So those not-for-profits, co-ops, and such buildings. What is in the Build Canada Homes program that will allow us to speed up the building for those people that need the deeply affordable homes?
Thanks for the question to the member. Build Canada Homes will be partnering with governments at all levels, so hopefully we see the government of PEI come forward with proposals and opportunities to build affordable housing in partnership. Build Canada Homes will help finance projects that have deeper levels of affordability, that from all the way to supportive transitional housing. There's $1 billion that is earmarked to go to those who are at risk of homelessness or currently without a home, and building transitional supportive housing in partnership with provinces. We need the provinces to to fund the wraparound services, the health services that are critical for stabilizing people coming off the street and out of shelters. So we'll see a significant investment in partnership with the provinces on that deep core need housing. But also, I think I'm very encouraged by the interest in seeing projects, social housing, co-op housing, workforce housing, again, in partnership with provinces, in some case cities or First Nations, working with the nonprofit sector on the operating side and the private sector on the building side. I think it's using the strengths of all different sectors here and strategically financing projects or portfolios of projects that get the most affordable housing built as fast as possible.
So second question, and I was home last week and I visited a lot of potential businesses that are looking into modular and prefab. What is in our program that we've announced that's going to help leverage dollars for modular and prefab construction, particularly in Atlantic Canada, where they applaud what we're doing on skills trading, but that's going to take some time to develop a workforce to address the stick building that has been going on traditionally. So what specific have we announced that will deal with promoting modular homes and prefab components for house building?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thanks to the member for the question. We're seeing opportunity with factory-built housing components, in some cases entire modular homes, and in many other cases it's components like walls and floors, kitchen and bath pods, different pieces of homes that can be manufactured in a factory and then assembled rapidly on site. We are looking at having criteria in the Build Canada Homes investment policy that maximizes the content of manufactured products, Canadian manufactured with Canadian materials, Canadian workers, Canadian building technologies. We want to see all of that advance as part of investing in the Canadian economy and accelerating the construction of housing. We know we can manufacture in a factory year-round, literally 24/7, 365. So very efficient, as with all other products basically that we have. We manufacture them in factories. We need to be shifting our home manufacturing into factories, and we're seeing less than 5% of Canada's housing stock is actually manufactured in off-site in a factory. In Europe right now, I think the leader is Sweden, with almost 50% of their homes manufactured in factories. So we need to catch up. We need to see our manufacturers advance their technologies and create more jobs. That'll help with productivity. Fewer workers working in factories can produce a lot more homes, which speaks to the earlier question about doubling housing construction. The only way we can do that is if we invest and support the manufacturing industry to be more productive in putting homes together.
Thanks, Mr. McDonald. You have 1 minute left.
How long?
1 minute.
1 minute? Okay, thank you. In regards to a lot of the smaller municipalities that are in ridings like mine in Atlantic Canada, they face capacity challenges when it comes to the planning and the permitting and the environmental assessments. What are we doing to help those communities accelerate house building so that we've heard from speakers here for the last 2 or 3 sessions of our committee that talked about development costs. So how are we addressing that for Atlantic Canadian developers and communities?
There are a number of ways that we can address the challenges with approval times and the cost of building. Our government is looking at reducing development costs, the charges that many local governments apply currently.
You could wrap up that thought in about 10 seconds.
Okay, so reducing development costs is one piece of the puzzle. Design standards, we just relaunched the CMHC Housing Design Catalog last week with detailed designs that can help local governments as well fast-track approvals.
Thank you, Minister. On va suivre avec Monsieur Garon du Bloc québécois pour 6 minutes.
Merci, Madame la Présidente.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. First of all, welcome to Parliament, Mr. Minister, and congratulations on your nomination to the position. Over the past 4 years, 4 provinces that lost some of their credit rating. BC, for example, New Brunswick, Ontario, Quebec, and these credit bureaus mentioned that there's nothing left in the federal envelope to assist these provinces. Now, if we don't have the infrastructure required, sewers, streets, have you asked the Minister of Finance to indicate and include an unconditional envelope, as it were, to assist with the programs of the provinces who need that help? Well, thank you for the question.
Details of your question, I can't speak to. The Minister of Finance is directly responsible for that. My part of this bill is very focused on the tax break for new home buyers and the opportunity for new home buyers to qualify for up to $50,000 of tax break.
Vous avez tout dit ça dans vos remarques préliminaires.
Well, you indicated all that in your preliminary remarks, but as the Minister for Infrastructure today, for those provinces that have lost their good credit ratings, you were mayor of BC. Can you add nothing to this conversation? You're going to reread the text of the bill to me.
Merci pour la question. I'm here to discuss the bill for first-time homebuyers and the opportunity to reduce the costs of homes for new homes for first-time homebuyers. I will say on the infrastructure front, housing infrastructure is critical. We can't build new homes without the housing infrastructure.
Mais vous avez, c'est critique, mais vous avez rien à nous dire là-dessus. Je comprends.
Well, it's a critical situation, but if you can't add anything, okay. The Bloc Québécois requested that infrastructure support. You're talking about affordable housing. What's the threshold for an affordable house in Canada?
Is 30% with Build Canada Homes, the criteria we're looking at is 30% of gross income. So we want to see housing costs be less than 30% of gross income. And to your infrastructure question, we have several funds that we are working with provinces.
L'enveloppe est vide. On est rendu à la prochaine question, Monsieur le ministre. L'enveloppe est vide. Vous n'avez pas fait de
représentation. But the envelope is empty. For the average Canadian, in the Laurentians, for example, can you offer me an example of a price? What is the price of a house, a home that would be affordable?
Is less than 30% of their income. We're no longer doing area-based pricing and affordability indexes. We are doing it based on an individual's income, so that it can be consistent through different markets. It will be responsive to people's ability to afford a home, and make sure that it's less than 30% of their gross income. And there is still infrastructure funding in the Canada Community Building Fund and the Canada Housing Infrastructure Fund that I announced several of those last week, and we will be continuing to invest in infrastructure for housing.
Merci. Je suis convaincu qu'une personne à ma circonscription va comprendre votre réponse.
Well, I'm convinced that anybody in my riding will understand your answer. So, Minister of Finance says he's trying to coordinate the budgetary cycle with the construction seasons cycle. How is he going to do that?
Merci pour la question, Monsieur Garon. So the construction season obviously starts in the springtime as the weather warms up. So we want to see approvals through the winter of financing so that construction can begin in the spring rather than approvals in the spring.
Vous avez une bonne réponse, c'est bien, ça nous a pris 4 minutes 30.
Okay, that was a good answer. It took 4.5 minutes. Now, we'll begin in the spring, it finishes early winter. Now, is that why you didn't table a budget in the spring? And now we're waiting for winter. We're on the edge of winter now. And once again, at the end of the construction season, they still don't have any kind of return or refund.
Investment through the course of the year. Certainly since I became Minister of Housing in May, we've made significant investments in housing and infrastructure to support housing that goes into next season. But I think to the member, we need to be focused on manufacturing as well, so that we can be manufacturing year-round and then construction during the warmer season.
On parle de C4, Monsieur le
Well,
ministre.
we're dealing with Bill C4 now. So you came to Parliament in the spring, and you carried C4 with the support of the Conservatives. Now, what was more important for infrastructure was pipelines, and the people who have a property today are excluded from that, and it's like tying both shoelaces together. Now, we're broaching winter now, but now you're proposing this program.
Now going to go on to the second round of questioning, and we will be beginning with Mr. Gunn from the Conservatives for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chair. Minister, do you believe the housing market in Canada has become more or less affordable since the Liberals were elected in 2015?
Through the chair, housing has become less affordable probably since the day I was born. By nature, it has increased over many decades, and certainly over the past couple of decades since my first election in 2005 on the West Coast. Prices were escalating quite dramatically, as you would know.
Do you think the policy decision by the Liberal government to effectively double or even triple immigration rates into this country contributed to the rapid increase in prices and the corresponding decrease in affordability?
Through the chair, I can't speak to the immigration policies that precede my time here in Ottawa, but
do you think it had an effect on price? I mean, you're the housing minister, so do you think the rapid increase in immigration negatively, like increased housing prices and negatively impacted affordability?
Through the chair, there are a number of factors that affect housing affordability. Certainly, interest rates escalating over the years.
Is immigration one of them?
Immigration is a factor. There are a number of drivers depending on how much we're building and how many people are in the market.
So you would acknowledge the rapid increases in immigration rates decreased housing affordability in Vancouver and other cities across Canada?
I would certainly acknowledge there are many factors that have made housing less affordable across the country, including the federal government for several decades not investing enough in non-market housing.
Do you think the policy to double or triple immigration rates was the right one as it pertains to housing prices?
Through the chair, I'm here to talk about the first-time home buyers tax break on GST. So that's where I want to focus my remarks. That's why I'm before the committee.
You have no opinion on, as it pertains to immigration rates, as you're Minister of Housing, so as it pertains to housing prices. You've got no opinion on the matter.
Exactly. I'm the Minister of Housing and Infrastructure, and I'm here to speak about the first-time home buyers tax break.
Okay. What city or major city, what major city in Canada would you say has the worst housing affordability in Canada right now?
Through the chair, well, our housing affordability markets, Vancouver and Toronto, have both had the most challenges in recent years.
Vancouver recently was called the third least affordable housing market in the world. As the former mayor of Vancouver, do you find it somewhat ironic that you were chosen to now lead this policy file on the national level?
Through the chair, quite the opposite. I think having lived through many challenges, getting affordable housing built and seeing prices escalate in my city as mayor, seeing inactive governments like the Harper government that did not deliver on making housing more affordable.
So having
we've seen in
Minister, having housing increase while you were mayor is the prerequisite to being appointed as housing minister. You think that's a positive? Like that's a positive experience?
Through the chair, I think understanding how housing works at the local level and understanding the importance of strong partnerships with the federal and provincial governments is critical to understanding how we make housing more affordable.
I do remember the old adage that you learn more from your failures than your successes, although this might be taking it to another level. I mean, you oversaw the creation of the Vancouver Affordable Housing Agency, which was established to create more housing units primarily. You also promised, you ran as mayor to end homelessness in Vancouver. And I want to give you credit. You were the longest consecutive serving mayor in Vancouver's history. But let's look at the record on that key promise. Between 2008 and 2018, housing prices soared. Homelessness got even worse. Today, both issues are worse than ever before. So why should Canadians trust you to tackle this issue today as Canada's housing minister?
Through the chair, I appreciate the member citing some of the examples which did yield very good results. The Vancouver Affordable Housing Agency has built thousands and thousands of affordable units of housing in partnership with the federal government in recent years, has delivered significant affordability in Vancouver. We have seen challenges, but also significant investments in affordable housing. And that's what we need to see across the country. Frankly,
Minister, quickly, just in my last bit of time here, you previously said that you did not believe housing prices needed to come down in Canada. Do you still hold that view?
Through the chair, to be clear, we need to see average prices of housing for Canadians come down. We need to build a lot more non-market housing to bring down that average cost. That's the focus here, is more supply that is affordable and targeted at the people who need it the most, like first-time home buyers being able to access a $50,000
Minister. Thank you, Mr.
savings.
Gunn. That concludes this round of questioning. We'll now go to Mr. Turnbull from the Liberals for 5 minutes.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks, Minister, for being here and appreciated your opening remarks. I know we're here to talk about the GST rebate for first-time home buyers, but I want to we've heard from a few witnesses that encouraged us a number of times to think of the housing market as a system. You mentioned it being a system in your opening remarks, which was encouraging. It's also, as I understand, a very segmented market, right? Depending on your income, you're in that market in a different segment of that market. So what I want to do is ask you a question about the GST rebate, which is really just one of a whole number of measures that are geared towards helping first-time homebuyers get into the market, right? Like we did 30-year mortgages in the past, tax-free savings accounts, reduced mortgage insurance by 25%, and there's quite a long list. So it's a stackable. There's a combination of factors. So why is the GST rebate, the newest step that's going to help, and how does it complement those previous efforts? To really help first-time homebuyers get in the market.
Through the chair, thanks for the question. So the GST break for first-time homebuyers is very targeted at first-time homebuyers and giving them the opportunity for home ownership. I've spoken about Build Canada Homes and the other very significant initiatives that we're rolling out to make housing more affordable. That's primarily for rental housing, for below-market rental housing. This is an initiative for home ownership that gives first-time homebuyers an opportunity to save up to $50,000. That's a big chunk, up to $1 million home, that will make a difference for affordability on the ownership on the market side. But we need a full array across the housing system. From homelessness to the housing market. We need to be very targeted and methodical going through and ensuring that we are putting in place affordability measures across the continuum of housing. Canadians in different parts of the country with different incomes, we need to make sure that everybody has access to safe, secure housing. So there's been previous measures taken by the previous government. Some of them on tax, as you mentioned, some of them on housing supply. The Housing Affordability Fund, we've seen investments in housing infrastructure that are very significant. As the member from Quebec mentioned, we need to see that comprehensive investment across housing infrastructure, on the specific supply of affordable housing, and also on the tax measures that make it more affordable.
So in short, we're using every lever at our disposal to try and address the affordability challenges. That's what I hear you saying. I want to pivot to a similar but related question. In my riding, so I live in a suburb of Toronto, Whitby's just outside on the east side, and we're constructing a lot of housing. And some of it is sitting on the market. So it's all around the range, but under $1.5 million. So this GST rebate measure would actually apply to a lot of the units that are not turning over, which I understand developers need that turnover in order to finance their next project. So do you see this measure, some urgency in terms of getting this measure to Royal Assent? I kind of think that it may actually impact on the specific problem in my riding, which is the lack of turnover of some of those units. Do you think it will address that challenge?
Through the chair, yes, I think it will help. It's a targeted measure to get up to 47,000 homes a year into the hands of first-time home buyers, save them money in the process. We do have a glut of supply in Toronto and the GTA market and Vancouver as well. Be good to see many of those homes sell to first-time home buyers in the near term. And I think the sooner that this bill can be moved to Royal Assent, the better. I think I'd urge the committee to advance this ASAP so that we can offer both first-time home buyers and the developers on the market side the opportunity to move that housing, that stock of housing that right now is not selling. It's on the market, not moving. And as the member stated, we need to see those sales so that more new homes can be built.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Turnbull. On va tourner vers Monsieur Lefebvre et je comprends que vous... Oh, pardon.
Oh, I'm sorry, Monsieur Garon, your turn again. Thank you, Chair. Now, you've had a number of tough questions from your Liberal colleagues, and we're going to give you some easier questions. In Quebec, le Bloc québécois tabled their non-negotiable demands to improve the budgets. The refinancing, for example, for the accelerated construction of homes in Quebec. We want an unconditional envelope for Quebec. Are you convinced, as ministers, that this is a reasonable demand?
Pour la question,
thank you for that question.
That housing in Quebec involves a distinct context, including M30, M30, which we are committing to working respectfully within that framework. We're going to be working closely with the Quebec government and all provincial and territorial governments on Build Canada Homes. That is where we are seeing the most significant investment and partnership with provinces and territories.
Précisément sur l'initiative de construction rapide.
Now, on the accelerated building, is it a yes or no? Is it a good idea, not a good idea to increase that budget? It's not a hard question.
Is the member referring to the Housing Affordability Fund, the Housing Accelerator Fund?
C'est l'initiative de construction rapide de logement.
The Accelerator Fund. Now, the only program that's actually working and working well.
Affordable Housing Fund, the AHF that's administered by CMHC, is getting an increase, a top-up of $1.5 billion, which we announced recently, so that there is more funding available to the provinces, territories, to build affordable housing as Build Canada Homes ramps up and takes over that.
Merci. Il me reste 20 secondes. Une question
20
rapide.
seconds left for me. So here's some snap questions. How many youth or people under 35 years of age without the assistance of families, funding, or other kind of support in order to get their access to the rebate, the GST rebate?
Sorry, thank
an
you,
exact
Minister.
number, but it could...
We're done with the time for that round. On va aller vers Monsieur Lefebvre pour 5 minutes et je comprends que vous allez partager le temps avec Madame Copina.
So, Mr. Lefebvre, and you'll share your time apparently? Yes, thank you. Build Canada Homes, we're looking at billions of dollars. What is the average cost of each of these homes, the doors, let's say?
What the question is, the coverage cost is...
Votre budget pour votre projet de 13 milliards, vous nous avez dit que vous allez...
13 billion, 14,000 homes. Now, how did you get that? Because otherwise it's 3 million per unit, 2.2 million per unit, not billions.
Be absolutely clear, the initial projects that were announced, which were 4,000 homes on Canada Lands Company across 6 sites and 700 units in Nunavut, is just the very beginning of Build Canada Homes investments. We anticipate seeing at least 50,000 homes built with the initial financing across Canada.
Ministre, combien le coût moyen que vous avez calculé?
What average price per housing unit in this budget? You talked about 30% of salary, for example. Now, 30% of a salary doesn't give us a number, an actual quantum. So what's the average price per unit?
To construct a unit does vary across the country in different markets. A ballpark is between $300,000 and $400,000 to construct a unit. But certainly we see a range of that, and we need to bring that cost down with manufactured or factory built.
Merci pour la réponse, Monsieur le ministre. J'ai seulement
Thank you. I only have a few minutes left. How many new employees have you added to the structures? The organization. In the Build Canada Homes, you must have added some kind of FTEs. So, how many FTEs, if you wish?
I think at this point there are a few dozen who are, in most cases, seconded to Build Canada Homes as a special operating agency. So it's people who've been working.
Merci, Monsieur le Ministre. Je vais passer la parole à ma collègue.
I'm going to give the rest of my time to my colleague.
For its lowest level of housing starts in the last 30 years. Home builders, contractors, and suppliers are struggling. Some are even considering shutting down, and I received a number of phone calls over the last few weeks. If we lose this capacity now, we risk losing the skilled workers and the businesses that we need to actually boost construction. The government had a chance to go all the way to cut GST on all new homes, but chose to go only halfway. Isn't this the time to support all housing starts, not just a few?
Through the chair, initially our goal is to implement this first-time homebuyers tax break. It does affect up to 47,000 homes a year. It's almost $4 billion in GST break, which is very significant right out of the gate. So we want to see this implemented ASAP, and then, you know, if there are next steps needed, we consider
Minister,
those.
we have a housing crisis, so why go halfway and not apply it to all new houses? We're trying to get new houses built for people to be able to buy them. Why go halfway?
Through the chair, we don't have the data that demonstrates that this is only halfway. This is a targeted measure for the market to make it more affordable.
This is only for first-time home buyers. So it
Correct.
wouldn't help, for example, somebody who lost their house because of an affordability crisis. It wouldn't help a young couple that has a condo, wants to buy a house. It doesn't apply to a senior who wants to downsize. It wouldn't apply to all these groups of people that may want to buy a new house. It only applies to first-time home buyers, and at the limited $1 million mark. So why go halfway on the GST rather than apply it to all new houses if we're actually trying to support and boost the industry to build more homes?
A very brief response, please, Minister.
Yes. Well, this is a targeted measure for first-time home buyers, and we have several other tools. I've mentioned Build Canada Homes and the work that Build Canada Homes is going to do to make housing more affordable and build at a scale that is unprecedented. So we're going to see a number of different measures across the housing.
We'll go now to Mr. Sawatsky from the Liberals. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Minister Robertson, for coming today and all of your work so far on the housing. So housing is a foundation of health and a productive economy, and I'm glad to see that it's a priority right now of the current government. I know, for example, in my riding, there's a lot more investment needed for people who can't afford housing or who don't have housing at all. Shelters are over capacity, affordable units are disappearing faster than they're being built, and there's a lot of people living without stable homes. So this is a social issue, but it's also an economic one. It's straining our labor market, our health systems, and local communities. And it's also, housing is deeply connected to things like mental health, public safety, and the toxic drug crisis. So this doesn't exist in isolation. So you mentioned earlier the $1 billion earmarked for transitional housing. So I'm wondering if you could maybe elaborate on the rollout and how that's expected to have an impact.
Through the chair, thank you to the member for the question. We signaled $1 billion of the initial $13 billion for Build Canada Homes will be focused on affordable, transitional supportive housing. So we're looking at modular solutions that can be built within the next 12 months to get people from the street or from shelters into stable supportive housing with wraparound health and social services. We need provincial partnership to deliver on those wraparound services. Those are critical for ensuring people are stable as they move in to homes, and ideally we're transitioning those folks through the transitional supportive housing into permanent housing. I think that's been a proven path in many cities. Certainly in my city, we built 600 homes and temporary modular homes in 2018 for people who were homeless or at risk of homelessness. A very successful track record of people transitioning into permanent housing from that. So we want to see that initial $1 billion allocated and with those modular homes with supports up and operating before next winter. That's the big goal here. So we are reaching out to partners across the country to deliver on that, to the provinces to fund the services that support that supportive housing. I think it'll be a really important initiative for tackling homelessness and making sure we can help people get off the street and out of shelters.
Thank you. And I'm also wondering if you could elaborate on how specifically provinces can support with mental health and substance use services.
Yeah, thank you for that question. It's obviously a critical element of stabilizing people in housing who have been homeless. Certainly mental health and addiction rates are much higher with people who are suffering from homelessness. So there's a combined effort there with our provinces and territories, with the health services, the mental health support and addiction support that's needed. I think across the board, we need more support on drug treatment for addictions. We certainly see that as a complicating factor in helping people who are struggling with homelessness. So I think we need a holistic approach here that integrates the health supports very directly into the housing that's needed.
Thank you. I'm wondering also if you could touch a bit on the recent developments with co-op housing and non-market housing.
Certainly, through the chair, we are very bullish about working with partners across the country on co-op housing, and we know it's a great solution for part of the housing market. It delivers affordability, it delivers community building. My riding, Vancouver Fraserview South Burnaby, is the highest number of co-ops of any riding in BC. So I know firsthand how successful those co-ops are in terms of providing affordable housing and great communities to live in. And we want to see a new wave of co-ops created across Canada that offer Canadians more affordable options for housing. I think it's a big part of our solution here, and we will be working with all the partners, the Co-op Housing Federation of Canada, certainly an important partner on this, and many of the local partners, as well as seeing provincial and territorial and city partners participate in creating co-ops.
Great, thank you, Minister. Thank you, Mr. Sawatsky. We'll now go to Mr. Kelly for 5 minutes.
Thank you. We've heard testimony at this committee in the last couple of meetings that condominium pre-sales in Canada's two most stressed housing markets are in absolute free fall. Down 90% in Toronto, down 70%, I believe, in Vancouver. How on earth is your government going to see the level of starts in the years to come when there are no pre-sales today?
Through the chair, thanks to the member for the question. It's certainly a big concern for all of us who are tasked with making housing more affordable in Canada. This supply glut in Toronto and Vancouver has been building for a number of years. This isn't something that the government can solve overnight, but the first-time homebuyers tax break on GST could represent up to 47,000 homes that are purchased by first-time homebuyers, getting that $50,000 discount.
Minister, it would seem that the cost of construction is so high that builders cannot build at a price that consumers can afford. This is the legacy of your government. This is a problem that has been creeping in for the last 10 years. You have now sellers who can't sell and buyers that can't buy. You're going to need more than what is contained in this bill to address the affordability. Productivity in this country is stagnant. Per capita GDP is the same as it was 10 years ago when this government took office. So how will you possibly achieve your housing goals in this environment where wages are stuck and costs are too high?
Through the chair, well, we have quite an array of challenges. Certainly the global economic conditions, the tariff impacts complicate matters right now for the housing market. We know what we can deliver in terms of government support on non-market housing, and that's Build Canada Homes' big mission right now with $13 billion dedicated to focusing on non-market. This new first-time homebuyers GST break is a targeted approach on the market side that, again, will affect up to 47,000 homes. Hopefully that makes a big impact. We're also going to be reducing development charges in markets across the country to help bring down the cost of development.
Okay, let's talk about development charges. As Mayor of Vancouver, development charges went up, it looks like about 330% during your tenure as mayor. So when did you come to the realization that development charges contribute to the crisis of affordability?
So development charges are very different across the country. Vancouver is unique from many other markets in Canada in that the price of market housing is much higher than the cost side. So in order for the city to pay for the housing infrastructure, which is necessary to build the housing, recouping some of that cost through development charges was a strategy. Otherwise, that whole extra margin would go to developers.
So when you were mayor, it was something that you just had to do, and now that you're the minister for housing, it's a problem.
The challenges now across the country are that development charges have increased in several markets. Some parts of Canada do not have development charges.
Are there any cities higher than Vancouver?
Vancouver has been at the high end, particularly because the prices are higher. So if the development charges didn't make up that difference, if the development charges didn't make up that difference, all of that cash would go to developers. So the city's approach was to capture some of that gap between the market price and the cost to build into community investment.
You said that your government is going to reduce development charges. Is there anything in C4 that will accomplish that?
No, that's an additional measure. Again, C4 is focused on first-time homebuyers and cutting GST. We have a number of other measures, and decreasing the cost of development is one of those that we're working on.
So the carbon tax, the consumer carbon tax is removed in this bill, but the industrial one remains. Does the industrial carbon tax contribute to the cost of housing material?
I can't speak to that as the housing minister. I don't think it's related to the affordability
Well, we
challenges
had
with
testimony
housing.
to
Thank you,
that
Mr.
effect
Kelly,
earlier in
and
this
thank
study.
you, Minister. That concludes the time for this round. On irait à Monsieur Lavoie. Vous avez 4 minutes.
Mr. Lavoie, 4 minutes. Thank you, Chair. And thank you, Mr. Minister, for being with us this morning. I'm in Beauport-Limoilou, and the first priority in that particular writing is housing. So I really take this to heart. Over the past week, we weren't sitting in the House. I met a lot of organizations working in building trades of all types of housing, modular, co-op, portable. And I was very, very interested in a number of projects that they have launched and that they have a lot in the order book. Now, how will Canada Build Canada Homes coordinate with the federal government, the provincial government, the municipal government? I was with my colleagues, like Bon, from a different writing. The solution is there with these organizations. They're ready to play. So how are we going to make the thing fit?
Merci pour la question.
Thanks for the question.
Through the chair, partnership is essential to delivering. No one level of government can solve housing affordability. It's a very complex housing system in Canada. And although we're, as an example, we see housing starts and the market in Quebec more stable, and in many cases more affordable than other markets across Canada. And I know the government of Quebec has been very focused on housing affordability and delivering for their people in Quebec. So we need to make sure that the partnerships recognize the strengths of each level of government, of the private sector in terms of building and construction, of manufacturing as a big opportunity. And Quebec has lots of great manufacturers who can produce housing projects. We need to connect the dots to Canadian materials. We want to see as much Canadian softwood, particularly from our provinces. BC and Quebec are very, very vulnerable right now because of the softwood tariffs. We need to see as many new homes built with Canadian wood, Canadian steel and aluminum to support all these other industries. So it's a complex set of partnerships that delivers more affordability and invests in the Canadian economy. And we're looking forward to very strong relationships with Government of Quebec and make sure that we collectively can deliver for people with more affordability.
Et rapidement, il me reste 45 secondes.
Quickly, I don't have much time. The advantage, I think, would be have one interlocutor with Build Canada. Is this what you're aiming at?
Is about a one-stop shop for affordable non-market housing. That's where the focus is, and making sure that everyone who's building or seeking affordable housing in Canada knows Build Canada Homes is where they can come for federal government support and partnership.
OK, bien merci, Monsieur Lavoie.
Thank you, Mr. Lavoie. Well, I just wanted to raise my hand so that you come down on the hammer. So, of course, I want to thank the witnesses.
Monsieur Garon.
J'ai une question procédurale, Madame la Présidente.
I have a procedural question on the timing of our interventions. We started the last round, but in the past, we had 2.5 minutes, and a little less for the block. But this time, it seemed that everybody got the full 5 minutes apiece. And I'd like to understand which standing order, what rule applies, because we don't have the time to get a full round in, if you will. So could we have some clarity on that? Well, let me check with the clerk, and we will suspend. Well, I have a very, very good question, but I'll send it to him by writing. Yes, we'll look forward to that. Thank you. So, thank you to the witnesses. We have to
tourner à la...
Colleagues, we'll resume the meeting. Before giving the floor to our witness, I'd like to confirm a question with answer to Mr. Garon. We, in the first meeting, when we organized the committee, we organized the distribution of turns, if you will, and the timing of them. So as possible, of course. And we usually do this approximately 72 hours, 3 days ahead of time. Now, first turn, Conservative, Liberal, and Bloc Québécois. Second turn, the same thing, party, Conservative, Liberal, and then Bloc. 2.5 minutes, 5 for the Conservative, 5 for the Liberals, Conservatives. Now, at the discretion of the committee, we can, if we have time remaining, we can modify that a little bit, but it requires consent of the entire committee. Well, I agree with you, Madam Chair. I read the motion, but that applies to complete rounds. That's the time allotted for each round, but if there's 10 minutes left, we don't have the time to do another full round. So perhaps we could modify the amount of time for each party represented and make that okay for the 10 minutes. Well, as you said in the motion, and at the discretion of the chair. But it's a routine motion, and it has to be accepted with the full consent of the committee. So once again, I could put it to a vote, go to committee, if they all agree.
Thank you so much to our next round of witnesses. We are delighted to have the Honourable Julie DeBrusen, the Minister of Environment and Climate Change, who is accompanied by Judy Meltzer, the Associate Assistant Deputy Minister for Environmental Protection, and Alison McDermott, the Assistant Deputy Minister for Strategic Policy and International Affairs. Without further ado, Minister DeBrusen, you have 5 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And thank you, Madam Chair, honourable members of the committee. I'd like to begin by acknowledging that we are gathered on the unceded territory of the Anishinaabe Algonquin Nation. Thank you for the opportunity to appear before you today as part of your study on Bill C-4. I will focus my remarks on Part 3 of the bill, which follows through on our government's commitment to eliminate the consumer carbon price under the Greenhouse Gas Pollution Pricing Act. As members know, regulations made earlier this year ceased the application of the federal fuel charge as of April 1st, 2025. Bill C-4 seeks to legislate this decision by repealing the legislative framework for the consumer carbon price, also known as a federal fuel charge, to complete the process of concluding this policy. These proposed amendments follow the regulations made in March of this year that set fuel charge rates to zero, effective April 1st, 2025. It's important to note that the proposed amendments in Bill C-4 only affect the portion of the Act under the purview of the Minister of Finance and administered by the Canada Revenue Agency, which was previously used to establish the federal fuel charge. The rest of the Greenhouse Gas Pollution Pricing Act remains in force. Le projet de loi propose une abrogation progressive afin d'assurer.
The bill proposes a phased repeal to ensure orderly process for charge payers in the Canadian Revenue Agency. First, changing the provisions would be retroactively repealed as of the 1st of April 2025. Secondly, rebate provisions would be repealed on the 1st of October of this year in order to allow time for charge payers to claim any outstanding rebates. Third, registration provisions would be repealed as of the 1st of November 2025, giving registrants, such as distributors and importers, until the 31st of October to file their returns. Finally, all remaining provisions of Part 1 would be repealed effectively 1st of April 2035. This ensures a continuity for final wind-down activities, including CRA processes that still rely on existing rules.
Transition is efficient, predictable, and fair. The repeal applies only to Part 1 of the Act. The remainder of the Greenhouse Gas Pollution Pricing Act continues to establish minimum national standards for carbon pricing stringency. This ensures that carbon pollution pricing applies to a broad range of greenhouse gas emissions from industry across Canada. La partie 2 de la loi, appliquée par...
Part 2 of the Act, as administered by the Environment and Climate Change Canada, establishes the federal output-based pricing system, our regulatory trading system for large industrial emitters. It also creates the Canada's Greenhouse Gas Offset Credit System, which provides incentives for projects that reduce emissions or increase removals from the atmosphere. The federal output-based pricing system remains in place and continues to apply in jurisdictions without their own systems in order to meet national standards or where provinces and territories request it. Today, this includes Manitoba, Nunavut, PEI, and Yukon.
Price was already removed through regulations in March. These legislative changes do not create new impacts on emissions. Madam Chair, honourable members, Part 3 of Bill C-4 follows through on what regulations have already achieved, the removal of the consumer carbon price. It enshrines that decision in law while ensuring a fair and orderly transition for Canadians and businesses. At the same time, the Greenhouse Gas Pollution Pricing Act continues to serve as the foundation of Canada's approach to carbon pricing. Federal and provincial territorial industrial pricing systems continue to drive cost-effective emissions reductions and incentivize investments in decarbonization. Such investments are critical for ensuring Canadian competitiveness in a low-carbon global economy. I look forward to your questions and to supporting the committee's work on this important legislation. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Minister DeBrusen. We will begin this round of questioning with Mr. Kelly for 6 minutes from the Conservative.
Thank you. Minister, your website says that you have, quote, supported putting a price on carbon pollution and have, quote, taken a strong stance against oil sands expansion. Is that the policy of your government?
Our government has been very clear that moving forward, we need to make sure that Canada is an energy superpower. That means in conventional energy and renewables. What that means, though, is that we need to be low carbon, low risk, and low cost for the future.
Your words, or take your website's words anyway, that you have taken a strong stance against oil sands expansion. So, if Canada is to be an energy superpower and to have additional production in the oil sands, it will require expansion. Do you support or oppose oil sands expansion?
To be clear, our government's policy, and our Prime Minister has been very clear on this, is that moving forward, we need to make sure that we have the strongest economy in the G7, and that includes being an energy superpower that will be low risk, low carbon, and low cost. We will be sure that as we move forward as an energy superpower, that we are helping, across Canada to meet those needs. Because actually, when I'm talking with people around the world, what I am hearing is that they are looking to Canada to be able to produce the energy that they need for the future.
They've been looking to Canada for 10 years, and your government has hemmed in and done everything it can to harm the production of energy in Canada. So have you changed your mind then? You're no longer taking a strong stand against oil sands expansion. you going to?
I take issue with when you say, that we haven't been actually producing energy in this country that the world is looking for. I was in Nova Scotia, and I got to see all of the opportunity that's being built in offshore wind. That is an amazing opportunity for our country. When I'm looking at what our country is producing right across this country with the nuclear capacity and how we're working, we had an energy agreement with nuclear with Romania. When you look at what Canada is producing and our know-how, we are consistently providing to the world the energy that they need.
So the world needs, we are going to supply the world with safe, reliable energy, we are going to need oil sands expansion. Do you still oppose oil sands expansion?
What I have actually said, and I think I've said it now a few times, is that we are going to be there as an energy superpower, and that we need to make sure that as we're doing that, any progress in that way is low carbon and low risk and low cost.
Okay. Do you support a Pacific pipeline, yes or no?
I'll go back to this piece, that if there's a hypothetical that you're putting to me right now. So a Pacific pipeline, there's no designed policy.
Okay. So here's one that's not hypothetical. Here's a real one. The government of which you are a member was formed in this time 10 years ago, and almost literally the first action that it undertook was canceling the Northern Gateway pipeline by order in council. Do you support that decision to cancel the then conditionally approved Pacific pipeline?
I'm looking forward to where we can move as a country, and that's where I think Canadians are at right now. Canadians want to see how we can build Canada, how we can build a strong economy for Canadians, and that we do that in a way that builds a strong future.
You see how your credibility is compromised on this. Your government killed the pipeline that was approved 10 years ago. You spent 10 years opposing pipelines. Your own website says that you have taken a strong stance against oil sands expansion, and now you want us to take you at some word now that you support energy expansion in Canada.
I've been pretty consistent in all of my answers to you, and I would say that, again, Canada has a role to play as an energy superpower, and in doing that, we need to be low carbon.
One final question. Time is very limited. So do you recognize the federal government's responsibility? It has a right and, in fact, a responsibility, if a project is in the national interest, to declare it so. Do you support the notion that the federal government has a right to declare something in the national interest?
We passed Build Canada Act, which is an important piece of legislation to do what Canadians are looking for in this moment, which is to build our country and to look towards projects of national interest. There is a process that fits within it with criteria that's built into the legislation.
What about, does that mean that provinces have a veto, or does the federal government have primacy?
What the legislation sets out are 5 criteria, including Indigenous consultation, and including Canada's climate objectives, but also including factors towards our economic...
Yes or no, does the federal government have a right to declare projects in the national interest?
We have a Build Canada Act that has specific criteria and a process built into it that needs to be followed.
Your failure to respond yes leaves us to conclude that you think that premiers may have a veto.
My answer is that we have legislation that we passed, I believe, with your support, that actually sets out what the rules are as to how that happens.
So then could you affirm now for the committee that, yes, the government has primacy and has the right to declare a project in the national interest?
I'm saying right now that we have passed legislation that's clear.
Thank you, Mr. Kelly, and thank you, Minister de Bruce. And that concludes the time for this round. We'll go to Mr. Turnbull for 6 minutes on the Liberal side.
Great, thanks. Mr. Bruson, Minister, it's great to have you here and team. I know that supports you every day in your work. I believe very much in your work as Minister of Environment and Climate Change Canada. And I want to ask you about climate competitiveness. Or carbon competitiveness, whichever you prefer. But I note that many of Canada's trade partners, that as we try to diversify trade with many countries around the world, many of them have an industrial carbon price or carbon pricing mechanism. Many of them, especially in Europe, are saying that they will apply carbon border adjustment mechanisms to Canada's trade. We also have over 50 countries in the world that have sustainable finance taxonomies, which also essentially categorize investment around the world in terms of what is green or what is considered green investment. So I want to, connect these two concepts here, which is how is Canada, as it diversifies trade, which is obviously one of the things that we're up to in order to build a more resilient economy when we're subject to a trade and tariff war that we didn't choose. But we're looking to do more trade with these partners around the world. So if we don't remain competitive from a climate and carbon perspective, how is Canada going to thrive in this new sort of world order?
Thank you for the question, and I know that you've done so much work when it comes to sustainable finance and in that space. So great to be able to get a question from you about that. Exactly as you're saying, what we're seeing is that the global economy is moving to a low carbon economy, and we see it with not only policies in different countries. You've mentioned a few, that countries are adopting industrial carbon pricing, but not only that, we're also seeing that some of our trade partners, like the EU and UK, are looking and putting in place carbon border adjustments. And what that does is it prefers for importation products that have an industrial carbon price going in. So if we want to be able to access these global markets, it puts us at an advantage to have a strong industrial carbon price. And what we're seeing is that overall, as the world moves to where they're going to put their investments, having low carbon products puts us with an edge. And that's a decision our country faces right now. I believe that our new government's making the decision that we are going to move ahead to be able to access these markets and to get ahead rather than falling behind where the pace is going.
Yeah, so if I'm interpreting you correctly, I mean, not only if we don't remain climate competitive, we jeopardize both those trade relationships and the potential for new green investment to come into Canada. Is that not correct?
That is correct. In fact, one of the conversation points that comes up a lot when I talk with different industry is that Canada can be a preferred location for investment because we have such a clean electricity grid. We have one of the cleanest grids in the entire world. We're at 84% clean electricity. That is something that investors, when they're looking as to where to move their businesses, where they want to invest in an economy that's moving towards a low carbon.
Thank you. Yeah, I heard quite a number of groups have told me this in conversations that I've had, exactly echoing your sentiments. But I wanted to also ask, in terms of our emissions reduction plan, how much of that, our planned emissions reductions, will be driven by the industrial carbon price that Canada has in place? Because I think if my memory serves me correct, it's a significant amount of our emissions reduction.
It's actually an effective industrial carbon price is actually one of our largest drivers to reducing emissions. So it's one of the most effective, and it's also, value for carbon, one of the cheapest ways of doing that for increasing investments in moving to low carbon technologies.
I met with the concrete and the cement association, who are doing great work, and they were saying that they actually want the industrial carbon price to be even stronger in Canada, strengthened as a system. Can you speak to whether there's any work being done looking at options for doing that?
Yes. So we've committed to making sure that the industrial carbon price works effectively and strongly, and it's one of the requests that comes from industry all the time, is that they want to make sure that they have certainty and predictability as they move forward. So making sure that the system for the industrial carbon price is strengthened and working effectively is very important. Not only, we're talking about two things at the same time, and I think it's really important to focus on that. It's about reducing emissions, but it's also about setting up business for success and an industry for success here in Canada.
So, how much time? 40 seconds. So maybe I'll just ask for a comment on the economic cost of climate inaction, which is something I've often thought, if only we could really, in a detailed way, look at how much does it cost if we don't act? Can you comment on that at all?
Yeah, I mean, there are two pieces. There's a human cost to climate change that we're seeing in all of our communities, and I don't want to look away from that. As communities are being evacuated, people lose their homes from wildfires and natural disasters. There's also, when we're looking at it, the economic cost.
Thank you, Minister, and thank you, Mr. Turnbull, for your question. On va tourner vers Monsieur Garand du Bloc québécois pour 6 minutes.
Merci, Madame la Présidente.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and welcome, Ms. Minister, and thank you very much for your presentation. During the electoral campaign, you know what question I'm going to ask. Your party tried to purchase votes by reimbursing some of these carbon tax. That is 14,006,000 to Quebecers. Now, your officials confirmed that. They said that it wasn't very serious to use the consolidated fund as a government's cash because the federal government, even with the consolidated fund, created a new bridge in Quebec. Do you agree with that you can buy votes on one hand because the bridge in Quebec was paid by federal funds? Well, first of all, I don't really agree with a good part of, well, that you don't agree with the facts is one thing, but, they paid for the bridge in Quebec. So what do you think of that, of the Minister of Finance? I do not agree with the basis of your question. No, you can't throw our officials under the bus here, but let's stick to the facts and the scientific facts. The system in Quebec and in BC have different specific and unique systems. When you reimbursed the carbon tax a few days before the election, this was a pre-rebate for non-payment taxes. Manitoba never paid any carbon tax, nor did the Québécois who decided to use their own system. Now, the PBO may have been lying to us, is that right? Because when he says that money delivered to the provinces irrespective of the fact that the tax had not been paid, is legitimate. Now, the reimbursement was done before the taxes were paid. Now, when the Minister of Finance comes, he didn't deny the fact. He says, it really doesn't matter because we paid for a bridge with the consolidated fund. Now, we, the opposition, the PBO, has the facts. All I can say, I have never asked anybody to mislead or to lie, and on behalf of other members of Parliament, it's a matter of respect. Madam Minister? Well, the Minister of Finance didn't deny it, that the reimbursements were made, the refunds, with carbon taxes that hadn't been paid. So where's the lack of respect when the Minister of Finance says it doesn't matter about that because the consolidated fund paid the bridge cost? As Minister of the Environment, it's not... Well, in C4, you are abolishing the carbon tax. And in the framework of this bill, Madam Minister for the Environment, you reimbursed non-paid taxes, 14 million to Quebec, 114 million. So where are we in terms of C4? Well, I'll repeat once again. separate system in Quebec and BC are quite unique. How concerning a carbon credit, and what we're talking about today is what to do with these taxes in order to eliminate the tax on carbon. Okay, I think I follow your logic. 7 provinces did not pay their taxes, but they received a refund on taxes that they had not paid and won't be paying. Now, Quebec has paid 22% of these costs. You reimbursed something that wasn't refundable. They weren't paid. So to say that we're being disrespectful, because the government paid, the federal government paid for a bridge a decade ago, but this is just not interesting. And it's taking money out of Quebec's pocket. That's not what I said. That's not at all. Not at all. We have a unique system, so we're not entitled to a credit like others that didn't pay because we have our own system. I said it was a different system. I can understand why you're feeling uneasy, Madam Minister. Different system, different treatment. Thank you.
Alan, for 6 minutes of questions.
Thanks, Chair. Minister, are pipelines in the national interest of the country, yes or no?
Pardon me?
Are pipelines in the national interest to the country, yes or no?
So as I answered in the last one, we have a Build Canada Act that sets out a process and criteria for deciding.
Does that mean, I heard your answer from before, which was a non-answer. This is a very clear question. Are pipelines in the national interest to the country? It's a simple yes or no.
It's not a simple question that you're asking because you're asking a question. I mean, my answer is quite simple as well. We have a Build Canada Act that sets out criteria.
Respectfully, it's not an answer. So let's put this into context, Minister. The Keystone Pipeline, would you support it? Yes or no?
That's not a decision that I have before me. So what we've been talking about when we're talking about projects in national interest.
The decision could possibly come up very shortly. Would you support the Keystone XL pipeline, yes or no?
I'm not going to answer a hypothetical. I will say that we have a process to decide which projects are in the national interest. That's what Canadians want from us.
So would pipelines fall under a project of national interest?
If there is a project that meets the 5 criteria, has Indigenous
would that include
consultation.
pipelines? I've not heard you say pipeline even once today.
What I'm saying is that there are many different kinds of projects that are being proposed as projects of national interest. It's really an exciting time, actually, for Canada to be able to envision what our future can look like.
And if one of those projects happened to be oil and gas pipelines, would that be something your government would support, yes or no?
Again, it's a hypothetical until there's a fully designed project that's being put forward that has gone through Indigenous consultation.
So, given that, your track record said otherwise, because when the Northern Gateway Pipeline was before your cabinet table, your government's cabinet table, it had overwhelming support from Indigenous communities, and yet your government and at the cabinet table decided to cancel that project. So it's a little hard for us to believe that your government now has a change of heart that wants to somehow build projects that would be to the benefit of Canada when your government has also turned away our allies when they came here for our energy. So once again, would your government be in support of an oil and gas pipeline if it's in the national interest and before you today?
And what I'm saying is I can't provide you with an evaluation of a hypothetical. What I can tell you is that I believe Canadians would be happy to see that there's a very clear process with very clear criteria on which to judge it.
It's very interesting that you avoid the word pipeline and will not answer the question. It makes it very clear that you are against pipelines and oil and gas.
Projects we can build.
Minister, would you support the constitutional power of the federal government to ensure interprovincial resource projects that are in the national interest to be built?
Point of order. I'm sorry, Chair.
Mr. Turnbull?
Just the line of questioning doesn't have anything to do with the bill that we're contemplating here at C4. I know that you've allowed a lot of latitude for members, but it's just continuous. It doesn't seem to have any relation to to the consumer carbon tax, which is being repealed here, which is what the Conservatives always wanted. It's like a dream come true for them.
Turnbull, Mr. Kelly, on the same point of order.
The witness has engaged on this line of questioning, so it has become part of the substance of it, and it's consistent with other testimony.
Thank you, Mr. Kelly. Mr.
My
Halan?
question stands. We see BC is holding hostage what's in the national interest for the country's betterment in the form of a pipeline. Do you support the constitutional power that the federal government has to ensure that that national interest project is built?
Like I said, again, there's a process to be followed when we're looking at what is a project of national interest. There are many different kinds of projects, and I was excited when you see that there were 5 projects.
Minister, respectfully,
that were
I'll
referred to
assume that pipelines are not in the national interest according to your government. I'll move on. The job-killing oil and gas cap that your government has put on, do you know how many jobs it's going to kill?
So when we're talking about the draft regulations for an oil and gas cap, there was a draft regulation that was tabled at the end of last year. It went through
What's
a
the number,
consultation
Minister? How many
period.
jobs will be lost with this oil and gas cap?
Mr. Turnbull, point of order.
Chair, I just want to ask if maybe the member couldn't speak over the witness. I know that the minister is trying to answer his questions. He's done that repeatedly, and
won't answer.
And the interpreters often find that very hard to interpret. So it's even hard for us to hear what's going on, especially if you're a French language speaker and you want to hear the translation. It's hard to make out what's being said.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Turnbull. I'll just remind all members that for the sake of interpretation, that we don't speak over each other. Thank you very much.
Well,
Mr. Halan?
the minister refuses to answer any questions. So it's over 100,000 jobs your oil and gas cap will kill, and it'll kill around $1 trillion. And we've seen over the last 10 years, your government drove away $500 billion of investment already because of bills like Bill C-69, this oil and gas cap, your industrial carbon tax.
Point of order,
Minister.
Chair.
Thank you, Mr.
I'm
Mr.
sorry to
Turnbull.
interrupt again, but we're moving to clause by clause. I believe it's in our next meeting, and the member's not asking any questions that are relevant to the bill in question. C4 is a bill that includes repealing the consumer carbon tax, which doesn't have anything to do with what the member is asking about.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Turnbull. Mr. Kelly and then Mr. Gahan on the same point of order.
The member is burning the minister's time. The member can ask whatever questions he wants that she is engaged on, and she is engaged on this line of questions.
Mr. Kelly, Monsieur Gahan?
Oui, Madame la Présidente, je comprends que
Madam Chair, I understand what we're trying to do here is to defend the minister. She's very able to defend herself. I'm okay to give some latitude because there is the question of abolishing the carbon credit tax, rather, to the consumer. Now, from the point where we have to go article by article, item by item, we have to know what the government's intentions are on so-called major projects, infrastructure, etc. How can we decide on C4 when it is so complex and we have to look at each and every part of it? Now, we should the minister's doing a very good job of answering the questions today when she's given the opportunity to do so.
Carbon tax question, Minister. The carbon tax 2.0, that has no rebate, which you guys you hid under this name, Clean Fuel Standard. Can you please let this committee know and Canadians know how much extra on top of a litre of gas that Clean Fuel Standard or Carbon Tax 2.0 will cost them?
First, I want to be really clear that the clean fuel regulations are not a carbon tax, and it does drive billions of dollars in innovation.
It also drives billions of dollars away from Canada.
I was continuing to answer the question. It sets us up for a strong low-carbon economy.
How much extra per litre will it cost Canadians on a litre of gas by 2030? Just the number, please.
So one thing that I find interesting is just because you keep referring to it as a tax, and I want to be clear
Minister,
about that.
since you're not
why
going to
don't
answer.
Point of
I
order.
actually
Mr.
would
Turnbull,
like to
on a
tell
point of
you
order?
something about what the canola.
Sorry, Mr. Turnbull, on a point of order.
I know the minister's doing a great job of answering or trying to answer, but Mr. Halan will not let her actually get her words out. It would be really nice if we could hear
Thank
the
you,
answer,
Mr. Turnbull.
Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Turnbull.
I
Mr.
haven't heard
Halan,
a
you
single
can
answer today,
continue.
so I'll answer. According to the PBO, it'll add 17
Sorry, Mr.
cents.
Halan, your time is up. Thank you. So going on to Mr. Sawatsky.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Minister, for joining us today and all of your action on climate. It was also great to tour UBC with you and the Futuri Lab and the UBC Botanical Garden. Climate change is one of the most significant economic challenges of our generation. Extreme weather events are already costing Canadians billions each year, damaging homes, critical infrastructure, and disrupting local economies. Communities across the country are facing wildfires, floods, heat domes, storms that hit hardest those that are least able to afford the recovery. So these really strain public finances, and they increase insurance costs and affect everything from food prices to supply chains. So I certainly agree with you that addressing climate change protects our economic future and ensures that Canada remains competitive in this rapidly changing global economy. So we often talk about the costs associated with the regulation in climate, but could you please speak about the economic cost of inaction when it comes to climate change?
Thank you. When I talk about what we need to do as a country to move towards a low carbon economy and to reduce our emissions, I kind of, going to your points, there are three major reasons. The first is just moral. Like, what do we need to do for future generations to protect our country? When we talk about building Canada and building it strong, it's about making sure that we have a future that we can give to our children and our children's children that is low carbon and protect the planet in that way. The second is existential, which I think goes to the part that you were talking about the costs to individuals and to communities when we're not fighting climate change. Like, we need to continue to help protect communities from the natural disasters that we're facing. And as you've seen in British Columbia, but right across our country, there are more and more of these natural disasters that are having a personal cost and an economic cost to individuals and to industry. But the next piece, I think, goes to also what part of your question was touching on, which is the economic. The world is moving towards a low-carbon economy. And when we were touring around, as you mentioned, in British Columbia and Burnaby in particular, we were meeting with industry and companies that saw opportunity in the future if we actually keep working to fight climate change, that they saw the business opportunities, and also that if we fall behind, that they would lose those opportunities. So I think there are three major reasons why we need to fight climate change, but also to build the economic opportunities, because they're good paying jobs, and we saw that in Burnaby when we were touring around.
Thank you, Minister. And so recently, I'm hearing a lot of from the opposition about pipelines, sometimes through BC is in discussion. And I just wanted to get your take on what are some of the risks of pushing through these projects without proper consultation?
I think when we look at how we want to build our country for the future, it has to be, there's this wonderful unifying moment that we're in as a country, where Canadians are envisioning what the possibilities are for the future. And that is a moment where I've seen, more than I've perhaps seen in my lifetime, premiers from across this country getting together and trying to envision how can we work together to build a strong country. It's been a moment where I've seen and heard a lot of Canadians propose their ideas for that. We need to be continuing to work together. In order for projects to go forward, we need to make sure that those conversations are happening across jurisdictions. We also need to ensure that Indigenous peoples are properly and fully consulted on the projects that are being proposed.
Definitely agree with you there. So when it comes to investment into renewable energy, I was wondering if you could perhaps comment on what are some of the most promising technologies available and any kind of plans to invest in such technologies?
There are a lot of different promising opportunities. I was in Manitoba last week, And one of the things that I thought was really exciting was to hear individual ideas and projects that were coming forward. We announced with the province funding to help support fuel switching for different industries. We had 11 agricultural projects where farmers put up their hands and said that they wanted to look at different ways to make their processes more energy efficient or to fuel switch in their grain drying operations. Those are opportunities that we can see where we're going to help them to save on their energy bills and at the same time to be producing agriculture in a way that's lower carbon. So there are really good news stories, I think, right across.
Madam Minister. Thank you, Mr. Sawatsky. Monsieur Caron, pour 2 minutes et demie.
Merci, Madame la Présidente. Madame la
Thank you,
Ministre.
Madam Chair. Ms. Minister, the government has appointed Ms. Farrell to major projects. Now, in cooperation with your government, they lost $25 billion, a salary that can go to $600 and some thousand a year now. Well, I'm sorry, but I'm not in a position to discuss salaries of our employees. You should be asking the question to the minister who is responsible for major programs. Okay, that's your answer. We'll go to the next question. In response to questions on the 20th of April 2023, you said that we would have the best carbon record of all the G7, have made massive improvements in 2024, that the rebate was contributing to these objectives, including the carbon tax. And I was in the House, I recall, that people were saying in the House repeatedly, over and over again, that the carbon tax in the provinces would apply and the rebates would be beneficial to 90% of the households. Now, with C4, we're abolishing that system. As Minister of the Environment, how can you justify impoverishing 90% of the population by eliminating the tax? Well, I'm very proud to see that our country continues to reduce emissions significantly. And since 2005, we have seen reductions of 8.5%. And with the preceding government, it was, well, look, in 2023, when they came out with the analysis of your dungeon, that you're light years away from attaining the targets, and that the carbon tax is part of one of the few solutions that you proposed. Now you're abolishing it, and you're telling 7 provinces that 90% of households will be losing money.
Yeah, Monsieur Lefebvre.
Monsieur Lefebvre for 5 minutes. Thank you, Madam Minister. Thank you for being here. I've done some research. You were born in Montreal. You represent Danford in Ontario. Have you had a chance to visit the Saint-Jean, Lac-Saint-Jean area? Yes, many times. How about Abitibi? Well, if you want to talk, I've been all over Montreal. I've been based in Montreal for a number of years. It's a beautiful province, and you've had the opportunity to visit the various regions in Quebec. How about those who work in forestry in Quebec? Have you met with any? Well, I was traveling young. I was traveling to see the country, and I wasn't on any political mission. Okay, forestry. Minister Guilbeault announced in 2024 that we in fact should have an emergency decree in order to optimize the harvesting of these. But they're wanting to protect the caribou, and also what we would like to see is to protect the jobs of foresters in our forests. Are you going to implement an emergency decree? I've had an opportunity to Mr. Charest and Drainville, how we're going to work together cooperatively on a number of issues. Now, this is a conversation that's going to exist in the communications between federal and provincial governments. There is a law called SARA, the Species at Risk. You spoke to Mr. Charest, the new minister, and how about Drainville? So from 218 to 208, how much money do you think they'll put forward to protect the caribous and the forest habitat? I don't know how Quebec is going to spend their money. Well, it's a very important. $100 million has been and will be invested to protect the caribou. Now, this emergency decree there, what would be your opinion on that? What's your position? Well, Species at Risk Act, it's very clear how it operates. And as a minister responsible for the environment, I have to follow the protocols, each step. I often discuss with the ministers in Quebec, but but you don't have any idea how much from 2018 onward, how much they invested. They invested $100 million to protect jobs, forestry jobs. Do you think that's adequate in order to protect jobs? Do you think it's enough? Well, the forestry industry is very important for Quebec, but also elsewhere in the country. And we are doing our best for protecting those jobs. And the law is very clear as to what my responsibilities are, and as a minister, I respect the mandate and the rules. Yes, but people in Abitibi, Lac Saint-Jean, the North Shore are listening to you now. Thousands of families are very worried. This new price fixing on wood or tariffs were now up to 45% on hardwood lumber. $100 million for the decade or the period in 2018 to 22. We want to protect our areas in Quebec, that our people, our employees, our workers. Well, listen, the tariff situation coming out of the United States is very, very important, and we are supporting workers in the forestry industry. We understand that they will be impacted by a 45% tariff. I'm sorry, but time has expired. Deputy Lavoie. Thank you, Madam Minister, for being here today. In preparing our meetings, something that keeps coming up, and that has to be agriculture. Why? Well, I was raised on a dairy farm, and my brother took over the business 35 years and converted it into an organic farm. I was quite visionary at the time. And I see that as it refers to agriculture and all rural issues, how will the government continue to assist producers, whether they're farmers, to reduce GES because they want to reduce these emissions? He started 25 years ago, so how can you help in that regard? I agree completely with you that the agricultural producers are those that feel the impact of this work. when there are either floods and droughts. Yes, that's it, droughts, thanks. They have they have to live with the results of droughts and floods. They are environmentalists, if you will. So how can we best support our agricultural producers? I said it's very, very important. Last week, for example, an example that comes to mind, when I was in Manitoba earlier, there were 11 projects that we visited, and we are giving support to the agriculturalists. So perhaps wind power, for example, reduce energy consumption, go to more renewable, and perhaps to convert to natural gas for some purposes. Well, I was there last week, and this is one of the things we discussed. Thank you. What impact will have on the reduction? What consequences will occur with the abolition of this credit on the environment in Canada? Well, the situation as I see it today, emissions have been reduced. The lowest rate of emissions in the last 3 decades. We continue to work on the project, of course, through regulatory and statutory means, to continue reducing our emissions. As you said, I travel throughout the country, meet a lot of people in agriculture, and I see that we can work very collegially with the industry. And those who are perhaps hard-stressed to pay for investments in their homes or in their businesses, but they are very conscious of the energy they use. We're talking about regulations, of course, but there's other measures taken to assist Canadians reduce their carbon footprint and reduce our emissions. This is part of my job, to reduce them throughout the country. As to revenue or income, how can there must be some means or mechanisms to maintain a reasonable revenue. Well, in a larger scope with the economic program for our economy, as you know, it's a global system. And we want to reduce our emissions, and to help agronomy and agriculture, we have to ensure that we also have to prepare to work in competitive fashion in a global economy. Thank you. That completes the time that we have for this session. I'd like to thank our Minister, Madame de Brussen. Thank you very much. Thank you to Ms. Helser and
before we wrap up, some of you would have received, well, actually all of you received an email late last week about a joint informal meeting with the German Minister of Defense, Boris Pistorius, and the Norwegian Minister of Defense, Tor Sandvik, which will be held tomorrow, Tuesday, October 21st. In advance of this informal meeting, the following motion must be adopted: that the committee meet in camera in an informal meeting with the German Minister of Defense, the Norwegian Minister of Defense, and a delegation from Germany and Norway on Tuesday, October 21st, 2025. That the committee defray the hospitality expenses related to this meeting, and that these expenses be equally shared with the Standing Committee on Foreign Affairs and International Development and the Standing Committee on Industry and Technology. Do we have agreement to adopt this motion? Yes. Okay, thank you very much, everyone. I hope to see as many of you there tomorrow as possible. And with that, do we have leave to adjourn the meeting? Okay, merci tout le monde. À mercredi.